Club. Good afternoon. So I hate to interrupt the fellowship, but it is time to start. I would like to welcome everybody to the 5,711th meeting of the Rotary Club of Chicago. So before I turn the reins over to our speaker, if you have not been to a meeting in a while and have not seen our fun facts, I start each meeting now with a member fun fact, and this week we get to spotlight Ted. So Ted Neville, who is sitting over here, once solved a physics problem in his sleep. He woke up in the middle of the night, grabbed a pad of paper, wrote it down, and then verified it with his genius roommate. So Ted is a secret genius in his sleep, apparently. Yeah, the power of sleep. There is something to that. So let's test your memory from last week. So I wasn't here last week. I was actually in Toronto attending a Rotary meeting in Toronto. But let's see if you remember. Who is our member who set a world record for most Ironman triathlons in 1 year? In 2009, this person completed 20 Ironman races in less than 11 months. Alita cannot answer. Timo. Yes. Timo, is this your first sticker? Yeah. Yes, so that is one of our board of director members, Sean Stringer. So speaking of the fun facts, I this week sent out some pointed emails to people to gather some fun facts, and I've gotten a few responses. I've also gotten a few responses that don't have a name attached to them. So if you have a relation to Amherst College, I need you to tell me who you are. And then there was also one submitted about some destination weddings happening next year that also didn't have a name. So at this point, it's a trivia question for all of us, and nobody knows the answer, including myself. So if that was you, I'm super grateful that you filled out my form, but I need you to put your name, and then we can move on. So in terms of some volunteer activities, each Wednesday we have the opportunity to cook and serve meals at Cornerstone Center. So in the afternoon is kitchen prep, and then in the evening is distributing meals. So this is an ongoing service project each Wednesday, and you can register for that on our website. If you have any questions, you can ask Alita. Alita's back there, and she's the one who runs it. And just to give a little snapshot, so last Monday, we did the kayak Chicago River cleanup with the Navy. And I'm so grateful to Eric, who brought a bunch of friends. We ended up with 19. And so each Rotarian was partnered with a Navy serviceman or servicewoman. And it was just great, right? It was just great. So we picked up a bunch of garbage, but it was really good fellowship as well. So today we have Annette Prince, who is our speaker for today. And to introduce her, I have her bio here. Annette Prince has worked on local and national conservation projects, as well as wildlife education and rehabilitation programs in the last 30 years. She joined the conservation project, Chicago Bird Collision Monitors, in 2004, and became its director in 2005, helping to advance its mission to rescue, educate, and advocate for the protection of birds impacted by the dangers they face in urban areas. Annette has served on the board of the Chicago Bird Alliance, formerly Chicago Audubon Society, for 20 years. She heads the Bird Friendly Chicago initiative to promote bird-friendly building design in Chicago. So in just a moment, I'm going to bring Annette up here to speak. So we do all the questions at the end. So anything that you think about during her talk, save it, and we will do that at the end. So let me switch over to grab her presentation. Okay, so you're welcome to come on up here and share your knowledge with us. Welcome to Annette Prince.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Thanks for inviting me today. It's great to talk to folks in Chicago, where our group has been working for the last 20 years. We like to note that Chicago is number one, but unfortunately, Chicago is number one in the number of migratory bird deaths that are occurring and the threat that's posed to wildlife. Chicago is a city that sits in the path of millions of birds that travel north and south every spring and fall. And by virtue of all those birds coming this way and the amount of urban lighting that we produce and the number of glass building designs, we're a perfect storm to create quite an obstacle for birds. You can see on that one chart there, Chicago ranks number one. Below us are Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, and lower than that, New York. So Chicago was a perfect location for birds that are traveling north and south. They're going from southern wintering grounds where there's abundant food, and then they're traveling hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of miles to get to northern areas that are rich in insect life in order to raise and feed their offspring. So these are birds that have followed these paths for hundreds of thousands of years before we had lights, before we had buildings, and it was a rich, abundant area for them along the Chicago rivers and along the lakefront to stop and feed, because the majority of these birds travel at night. There are thousands of birds passing over our head every night of migration. We're used to seeing things like geese and hawks that migrate during the daytime. You see big V formations of swans and geese that fly overhead. Bigger birds migrate during the day, but smaller birds are using the safety and the coolness of nighttime to travel. The person that did the triathlon will understand if you had to run 100 miles, would you rather do it in the heat of the day or do it at nighttime when things are cooler? So these birds are using the nighttime for celestial navigation, for safety and protection, to be hidden from predators. And then during the day, they're finding a place to rest and refuel for their next flight in migration. And unfortunately, what used to be a darkened landscape below them while they flew is now a lighted urban area, which looks an awful lot like the celestial patterns that they use. They say that baby birds actually sit in their nests when they're up north, and their brains are imprinted with star patterns. And it's part of a navigation system that allows them to triangulate back to the exact same place when they're migrating year after year in their lives. So birds are using the moon and the stars to find their way to exact locations without using Google Maps, without using AAA. They have fantastic navigation systems. But the lighting that we put on the land below them, if it's an overcast night and they're not seeing the stars, they instead have confusing patterns of light below them. And there also seems to be a fatal attraction to light that birds have, almost the way you see insects attracted to a porch light or a candle flame. So they're using lighting in a way we don't even understand at this point, and that lighting is thrown off by intense amounts of urban and nighttime lighting. So in the late 90s, Chicago started a voluntary program called Lights Out Chicago, asking that the downtown areas and buildings along the lakefront turn out as much of their non-essential lighting. That would be things like antenna lights, logos, display lighting that could very well go off after 11 p.m. because the majority of birds are passing through from 11 p.m. to sunrise. And Chicago has a really excellent record of voluntary participation from the Building Managers Association that puts that out to all their members. The city doesn't go completely dark, but as you can see from that skyline, that the very bright top lighting is gone. And those are the kind of things that could pull birds in and attract them. We are now also working with as much lobby interior lighting as possible that could go out, because that too attracts birds to the interior of buildings where there could be trees or fountains or appealing landscapes that they don't realize there's a piece of glass between them and that interior space. A study was done at McCormick Place in the early, I think it was 2002, where they compared the nights when the McCormick Place was dark and there was no convention going on, so such that the interior was dark, and the nights when they did have the building lit up all night long, and they found an 83% fewer birds died on the nights when could block or keep the lighting out. So it was just a significant number of birds that could be saved, particularly since that building sits right on the lakefront. And we had a sobering awareness of this this past October 5th, 2023, in which it was a night of very heavy migration. Birds had been piling up and sort of waiting to travel up north. A weather pattern brought them in, and over 1,000 of them died in one morning at the site of just McCormick Place. Downtown, we found over 1,600 birds that got drawn into the downtown area. So it was several thousand birds that died in one morning's time. And it was, as I said, because a lot of birds are coming from the north. They had a frontal system that brought them into the city, which is what they used to help kind of cruise in and save their energy if they can fly with the north wind behind their back. It was overcast, so the birds could not see the sky above. Instead, they just saw bright lighting. And that night, McCormick Place left its lights on all night long. So that, combined with the 2 football fields of glass that make up McCormick Place, brought thousands of birds toward that building and further into the city, where it was a mass casualty. Regardless of whether that one building like McCormick Place has its lights on, and McCormick Place having killed 1,000 in one morning is pretty catastrophic, and it got worldwide attention and awareness to what a problem this is. But since that building was built in the 70s, the records of the people who monitor and collect birds there have shown that they find over 1,000 birds a year there. So in the life of that building, it's killed 40, 50,000 birds. So that's the one night with 1,000 was certainly astounding and unfortunate. But we want people to understand that that's a tragedy that's been going on for 40 years. So it's something that is needless. And if we can do more light reduction and glass protection, we don't have to have that occurring for these birds that are just trying to find safe passages through the city. So regardless of what kind of night it's been, birds, after they've flown all night, are looking for a place to settle for the day. They move in along the Chicago River. They move into all the areas along the lakefront. And they're settling next to a lot of very dangerous glass. And glass is dangerous for birds when it's clear and transparent. A bird trying to fly toward the planter with those flowers would think that you could take a direct route. You and I understand because we've got references. We know what buildings are. We know that there's a frame there and we should walk around. We wouldn't run straight toward those flowers. But birds do not understand that invisible wall of glass. And if glass is reflective, it will show things like the sky or trees that look real to them, and they will fly into something that's a very strong mirror-like reflection. So our group was founded about 20 years ago, when we were really just seeing the number of birds that were being found downtown and reported, and the idea that we wanted to get more people on board for light reduction, as well as advocating for finding out what areas of buildings could perhaps be retrofitted to make them safer for birds. And our founder, Robbie Hunsinger, started this group in 2003 with about 12 volunteers. And we have since done work both documenting the scope of the problem as well as advocating for ways to make downtown a safer place for birds. We went from maybe 12 volunteers back in 2003 to over 200 volunteers in our group now that help us spread out and find birds both downtown during our morning monitoring, as well as a helpline that we maintain that people call us from throughout the Chicago area, because downtown isn't the only place where birds hit windows. It's a concentration, certainly, because it's on the lakefront and we have lots of tall buildings. But everybody's home. Any place that there's glass, a building with just one window in it is something that can be dangerous for a bird. And when they say 1 billion birds a year die from hitting windows, if you figure that everywhere, if everybody's house just kills one bird, you get to 1 billion very quickly. And they say that what we find about 8,000 birds a year just in the 1.5 square mile that we look downtown. We find about 8,000 dead and injured birds. They say you find about 1/10 of what really happened. So when we say we find 8,000, it could very well be 80,000 birds that are up on rooftops and ledges and places that we can't even get to. And you multiply that out to all the lakefront miles beyond the 1 mile that we look, and you can see how it gets into the hundreds of thousands of birds that must be dying every year in the Chicago area. So our teams of people go out in the mornings. We go out just before sunrise when the birds are first coming in to settle for the day. We're looking for the dead and injured birds that we can find on the buildings. We have people on foot, people on bikes, and we're taking the dead birds all to the Field Museum, where we feel that even though they've lost their lives, they're going to contribute to knowledge of their species, and they can be both documented and have been part of a lot of important studies. We take thousands of birds, maybe 5,000 birds a year, go to the field museum from us, if not more. And those are used for studies that are hopefully going to help the birds, help us find ways to protect these birds in a better way. One of the scientists that was working with our birds was recovering retinas from the birds' eyes and learning more about their vision, because if we can find a way to make products in glass that birds can see but still allow us the kind of windows and materials that we want, we hope to learn that and be able to protect these birds. The birds that are injured go out to the DuPage Wildlife Conservation Center in Glen Ellen. It's the largest wildlife rehabilitation center in the state and in northern Illinois. They take almost 3,000 birds a year from us. They come in these little paper bags that we put them in to transport them once we've caught them, and they get examined one by one to see if they've recovered, if they need treatment, and then hopefully the majority of them, as that little guy in the right-hand corner is, they'll get released into a safe nature preserve where hopefully they can continue their migration to either north or southern areas that they live in. We find over 200 different species of birds. Some people think that the only thing that's downtown are maybe pigeons and sparrows, because you see maybe a few gulls, a crow once in a while, but really hundreds of different kinds of birds come through Chicago. Some very rare red-headed woodpeckers are found downtown. That's a least bittern, which is a state endangered species that we have found several times downtown. So a great variety of birds, and then there's common birds like the cardinal that's in that picture, which would be a local bird that is probably staying here year-round. We then advocate for ways that we can make safer passages for birds that are coming through Chicago by working on lighting systems that can continue to provide the lighting that we need for safety and operations, but put the lighting where we need it. So any kind of cutoff light that sends the light down to where people are working at a desk, instead of lighting up an entire lobby, being able to have a station area where the light is on, or having a timer or a motion sensor such that when someone walks through a hallway, the lights come on. But both for energy savings and bird protection, if those lights can go off when no one's using that area, you can save energy as well as protect birds, as well as it's been found that the excessive urban lighting that we have is very detrimental to human health. Cancer rates go up with overexposure to lighting, and the darker our urban areas can be, the healthier it will be for humans. We're trying to work with the idea of using bird-friendly building design, and certainly the less glass you use, the greater your odds of putting something in that's hazardous to birds. Unfortunately, buildings that get high LEED and platinum standards, which is LEED stands for Leadership in Energy Environmental Design, use a lot of glass because they're using glass in order to have natural lighting and not have to use as much energy for lighting. So they choose to use a lot of glass. But actually, if you go over 30% glass in a building structure, you've increased your heating and cooling costs to the point that you're in a losing position. So encouraging buildings to use safer kinds of glass or less glass can be beneficial to birds. These are all examples of beautiful buildings that have glass in them, but they have the glass. This is the building in the lower right-hand corner is the Spiritus Museum on Michigan Avenue. It's so bright inside there, you almost need sunglasses on the inside. So there's lots of natural light, but they have a big ceramic dot pattern that when the birds get close to the glass, they see those dots that make it look like they can't fly through it. Just frosted glass, that's an airport linkway in Atlanta that just uses a beautiful pattern of frosted glass that again makes birds see that there's something in their way, not an open space. There's the Robert Crown Center up in Evanston is the building in the upper left-hand corner that has glass with patterning in it, and that's the Buck Stadium in Milwaukee that has a lot of glass, but it has a very fine striping pattern in the glass, which birds will see and avoid. I've seen birds fly toward both of those buildings and turn at the last minute because they see something that's in their way that they can't fit through. Yet it doesn't obstruct our view, it doesn't stop our appreciation of the building, being able to see in or out of any part of that building. You can put barriers in front of the glass and just keep regular glass, but then have a sunscreen, have this piping system that the New York Times does. You can simply at your own homes or even in commercial buildings have external screens. I redid the windows in my home and I have the screens on the outside. If a bird flies toward the window, they're going to land on the screen or bounce off of it. You could do hanging cores, which every few inches makes a bird see that there's something that they're going to either touch and move away from or see that it's in their way. You could do window films that have patterns that make so you can't look in, but that you can see out the window. That dense pattern of trees in that window film look too solidified for birds to fly through. This is a film called Solex, which puts a very thin stripe from the outside of the upper right-hand corner. There's very visible stripes for birds to say that I can't fit through those openings. But you can see from the two pictures down below, from the inside, you're looking out without very much of an obstructed view. There's a perforated vinyl that is also known as bus wrap. When you see a bus that looks like Spider-Man on the outside, but you can see out of it from the inside, it's a static cling film that can be cut to any size. It could have patterns on it. This building is once again in Milwaukee. They printed these beautiful floral patterns. You can see completely out when you're on the inside. It's like two-way glass, but from the outside, it looks like a solid surface that birds would want to avoid or not think of flying towards. Feather friendly is it's a cut vinyl pattern. What they do is they lay these tiny squares and other patterns that adhere to the glass, and they're spaced together enough that the birds don't see an opening big enough. And really, from a distance, as you can see in the picture on the right, you don't even notice very much that. I mean, the dot pattern almost disappears from view, so it doesn't really again ruin the view in or out. And then you could just do inventive, creative, artistic things. If you have a building that's dangerous, we've encouraged schools and nature centers to go out and use paints to put that kind of patterning on a window, even if it's your own window facing your yard, having enough that fills up that space that birds see it as a solid object to avoid. What doesn't work is just one hawk decal. A lot of people go to a bird store and they buy one hawk decal and they put it in the middle of the glass and they think that is going to keep the birds away. The picture on the lower right is the Art Institute facing Grant Park, and they've put owl decals in a few places, 5 or 6 of them, but the birds will avoid the spot where that owl is, but they will fly toward any other reflection of a tree, reflection of a cloud. So you have to have something very tightly packed for birds to avoid the entire surface that you're dealing with. People talk about the 2x2 or the 2x4 rule. Your average smallest bird that you can run into, like a hummingbird, is probably 2 inches this way and 2 inches that way. So if you space anything that closely together, whether it's stripes or dots, and it's very contrastive for them to visually spot, you've made an opening that the bird will say, I can't fit through that. Some people do 2x4 because their wingspan and a little larger bird can be 4 inches. To be really safe, people recommend it be a 2x2 pattern, and then birds will simply, realize that they're not going to fit through that. So what is McCormick Place doing? Since October 5th and the mass casualty that happened there, we had been asking them, bird advocates throughout the city had realized that birds were dying there, and for 40 years we've been asking them to do something about their lighting, do something about the glass. It unfortunately took the mass casualty last fall to gain national attention. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife actually intervened and went in and said, you know that this is a problem here. You're killing federally protected birds, and if there's ways to mitigate this, you need to take some action. So they have drawn their shades because they can leave. Sometimes McCormick Place has to have their lights on all night long. They have events, or they have the cleanup crews do all the work at night for the conference the next morning. So they can leave their lights on as long as they draw their shades, but they were very reticent to draw the shades. It took a lot of time to pull them shut. They had to get up on lifts. These are very awkward 1970s drapes. It's kind of like watching the Carol Burnett show, watching someone dragging these things. They're up on lifts, they're pulling, and then in the morning, someone's got to get up in a lift and just manually tug them open again. So it's pretty laborious. Our suggestion was for them to get an automatic shade system, because now tall buildings have just push button shades that drop, and they're open and they're closed, and there you go. The lights are no longer going out onto the darkened lakefront. Because McCormick Place is just the first thing birds see. They're traveling over the dark lake, and it's almost like a lighthouse. If those curtains are open and the lights are on, birds are getting pulled towards that. They also have 2 football fields of glass, and they have added that feather-friendly vinyl markers onto that. So they've added the 2x2 pattern of the vinyl markers, and it went up this summer. And we're eager to go out there and document this fall that we're going to see a significant disruption in bird collisions there. We're working with Bird Friendly Chicago, a coalition of bird advocacy groups in the city, to get the city of Chicago to have an ordinance that would require new construction to meet a certain standard of bird protection. We worked for about 8 years with the Department of Planning in hopes that they would at least make their projects be bird friendly. In the end, they were only willing to make it something you could get extra points for or earn points, but it was always optional. For us, if something's going to live or die, it shouldn't be optional. Same way we wouldn't have a building without fire alarms, smoke detectors, sprinkler systems. If this is going to mean that thousands of things will die at the side of this building, it's more important than icing on the cake that it'd be nice if you did this. It seems like it should be critical to do this. So we want to see new construction add in bird-friendly materials and designs. And actually, if you build that in at the start, people are complaining that it would cost too much. We've got to buy the different kind of glass. We're going to have to change things. But if you bake that into the beginning of the process, it doesn't have to cost that much. If you wait till afterwards, put the building up with traditional glass and then try to retrofit it, it's sometimes impossible because it's hard to hang window film on a 50-story building, as well as it's expensive. It's cost $1.2 million for McCormick Place to add the patterned feather-friendly markers on. So doing it up front, it's not going to cost you $1.2 million if you already have that in your design plan. We're working with the new casino that's going to be on the Chicago River, which is a very critical place. All the buildings that are on within a couple blocks of that building are showing hundreds of birds. We pick up hundreds of birds at even the short buildings there. They're going to put up a design that has lights and glass 24 hours a day on the Chicago River. It's critical that they make it bird friendly. They are in a known dangerous area for birds. And then any building that's getting renovated, the Thompson Center is getting renovated by Google. They're taking out a lot of this red and blue glass and they're putting more glass in. So, but we're hoping that the additional glass is going to be bird friendly. They've spoken to people about bird friendly design. So we would like to see this ordinance passed in Chicago that says, at least going forward, new buildings incorporate bird-friendly materials and designs, and that they also, if it's a major renovation, a facade change, while they're replacing that glass should look toward protecting birds. Because of any city in the United States, Chicago really stands as the one that owes the biggest amount of bird protection by virtue of where we're located and the hazards. We've worked with retrofitting and with a lot of universities. Northwestern has had 3 different buildings that they have added window film to, and we went through that building on the left side was one of the most dangerous buildings on campus. They added the Solex striping film. We almost never find a bird there anymore. So we see very positive results, and it really hasn't changed. You can't, when you look at that photo, you can't even see the striping. There's striped film on that glass, so it hasn't ruined the appearance of the building, but it's saving hundreds of birds' lives. These birds are important. They're important just because they're so amazing, but they're valuable to the health of an environment that everyone really relies on. They pollinate plants, they distribute seeds, they eat insects, they're part of food chains, and there isn't any bird that won't fly into a window. We had a goose that flew into a window the other day, and then we had a great blue heron that flew into one. Every kind of bird can be deceived by the reflections and by the transparency of glass. And really, we are connected to birds, and by protecting them, we are protecting the world that we live in and that we need. And so it's a benefit to everyone. It's social, it's environmental justice, because populations, these birds belong to the world, and environments are going to crash in the southern continents where they live. We're going to see droughts, we're going to see crop failures, we're going to have ecological disasters for these birds that are declining very severely. And we think there's ways to protect them, and that it's needless for them to have to die this way if we have the means to do it. And this is our webpage, and we have a Facebook page, and that's our phone number if you were to ever find a bird that needed help. I have cards that you can take if you want to keep that number with you if you're ever downtown, and some information on basically how to make windows safer. We always need volunteers, extra people, eyes and ears, and people who could help us if you're downtown or any other way through our networking. And we're hoping to see safer passages for birds, and be able to be really proud of the fact that Chicago does host these birds, and we really owe them the protection for themselves and for ourselves too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take questions from the room. Just ask your question from your seat, and then she'll repeat it into the microphone for the people. So do we have any questions?
Yes, in the back.
Hello, thank you so much for your lecture. It's very interesting. I am Africa Leon from Marbella, Spain, and yesterday I had the chance to go to the Field Museum. And there I was really very impressed when I was in the area of the dinosaurs, they explained all the mass extinctions we had along the life of the planet. And it was a shock for me, honestly speaking, to see that at the moment we are living now the sixth mass extinction in the planet. And for the first time in the history, the reason is the human impact in the nature. And the speed of the extinction of species at the moment, estimated by the scientists, is 30,000 a year, exactly every 15 minutes. I think we need more awareness in the world because it's really catastrophic already now.
Yes,
We need a lack of awareness that we should work as humanity to become more conscious about the problem we face at the moment.
exactly. She was saying how we are facing one of the largest mass extinctions in the history of the earth. 30,000, things are going extinct a year. It's huge numbers, birth numbers are plummeting. These are things that won't come back. We can't have them again once they go extinct. And we really, it's important, it's critical. People sometimes say, well, why don't birds learn not to hit the glass? For their evolutionary history, glass and light has been here maybe 100 years. Tall buildings and bright lights, 100. In 100 years, when you think of the evolution of the span that these birds have evolved to function in, is just a blink in their evolutionary period. So we put something up. It's as if I would say, if I try to walk across this room and I hit something, I don't see anything between me and the other side of this room. And these birds, I've seen a bird hit a window and pull back and just hit it again because it makes no sense to them. They're not wired. They don't live here. We don't find birds that live like pigeons and sparrows that live around here. I've seen them fly right next to a window, grab a bug and move away. They've spent their lives living next to buildings, so they have that experience. But these birds, some of them, like the ones that are going to be flying south from the fall, they've hatched up in Canada. Some of them have never seen a building, and I see them downtown. It's a little anthropomorphic, but they're confused. They've hit this glass. There's cars, there's people. These birds have never even experienced the whole urban situation, not to mention the glass when they're passing through the city. So they just don't have enough time to evolve and change because this happens fast. In nature, evolution gives things time to adapt and maybe find a way that they can understand what has changed. But this is a very rapid evolutionary change for them to adapt to. Yes.
So how did you come to be such a bird lover, so dedicated to saving birds?
Well, I really love birds. I love nature, and I really feel that these birds deserve a better fate. So I think it really touches me that I've done projects out in Alaska and California for wildlife work. But when I heard the woman, Robbie Hunsinger, who founded this group, saying that she was going to do something right here, I thought, wow, this is something like right in my backyard that I can do. And it impacts not just something right here in Chicago. Again, these are worldwide populations of birds that are critical to a healthy world. So the birds that we're saving here are valuable to everyone in the health of the planet. So that's pretty galvanizing, and it feels really good on an individual. Any one little bird that we save is good, and any progress we can make to prevent it from going further. It's just pretty distressing to think that these little guys are making these epic voyages. I couldn't walk to Peoria. I'd sit down and drop out of the gene pool. That'd be the end of my species, you know? But these little guys, they weigh less than, some of them weigh like 1 or 2 pennies, and they fly to South America. I wouldn't want to drive a car to South America. I wouldn't want to ride a bike to South America. And I certainly couldn't walk or fly to South America. And yet they're doing everything they can to maintain, the part that they play in our ecosystem. And we're hurting them when they come through here. So that really makes me pretty passionate about saying we can do better. Yes. On airplanes. Those we don't work with, but I know that airports have systems of chasing birds away from the runways, just trying to keep birds away from the area where there's a chance of a strike happening. So they have pretty active dog and other chasers that are trying to do that. I know I don't know if there's things they're doing with sound that could potentially prevent that from happening. That's a problem both for people on the airplane and for the bird. In that case, nobody wins when a situation like that happens. We do not work with anything that specifically, but it's the same idea of making the area where the birds could get hurt safer. So keeping the birds off of airport areas where certainly during takeoff and landing, we have a lot of problems. That's what I know about that. Yes.
That's one.
So knows a lot of have you guys done statistics on lower level buildings versus like high rises or commercial buildings?
I realize I can repeat the questions before. The first question had been about why I was interested in birds. The second question was about collisions with airplanes. But the next question is whether what we know about what height birds are striking building and whether we've taken any data on that. It's a hard thing to document in the sense that when we find birds they've already hit. I've done this for over 20 years and it picked up thousands of birds, but I've not seen very many of them hit right in front of me. We usually find them after it's happened, but especially on that October 5th day, people were bringing us enormous garbage bags of birds from rooftops in Chicago. We know that strikes are occurring higher up. We don't have always a way to document that or know that it's happened because it's out of our reach. So again, when I say we find 8,000 birds a year, that's just what makes it to the ground or we can get to before it gets swept up or grabbed by predators. We know that there are perhaps 10 times as many things on ledges and rooftops, and that's something that short of wiring the building for some sort of, there are some buildings on a low level that put like a thump meter up and they try to detect how many strikes would occur. It is felt that it's the lower 100 feet that are the worst because that's where birds are spending their time. So they're more likely to hit glass where they're feeding and hanging out. They certainly can hit when they're coming in first thing, but they're not spending a lot of time at those upper levels. It can happen, but if we say that a building has to protect, the bare minimum would be the first 100 feet. Because that's where the trees get reflected, that's where the birds are feeding. So we tend to focus on the lower 100 feet of a building, but we know that they can occur at every level, and we don't have complete measurements of how that works out.
Let's give our speaker a round of applause. Don't leave, don't leave. Stay here. Oh, come here. Yeah. No, don't leave the building either. So we have a token of our appreciation. Our speaker gifts this year are reusable grocery bags. So if you haven't seen them yet, these are our speaker gifts this year. It's a reusable grocery bag with the Rotary One logo on it. And so we are very appreciative that you came to visit us today. So thank you very much.
Thanks for inviting me.
Now you can go have that wonderful dessert. Oh, before I close it, go ahead. Before I close this phone number up here, this is the number that you can call if you come across an injured or a fallen bird. So I've had this in my phone before today. So if you come across a bird, you can call and somebody will answer and they'll send one of the volunteers out and they'll go pick them up. So she has some other materials up here as well. So you might want to take a picture of that slide right there. Okay, so let me, okay, I'll let you work on that. I need to. Yeah, I need to move this. How do I move this thing? Oh yeah, okay. All right, so I'm gonna go back to this one. All right, so we will carry on with our meeting now. So just a shout out to the company that created the bags for us, our speaker gifts. This is Sad Boy Tees. One of the owners is a friend of mine, and so they run a screen printing shop. So if you need something screen printed, I highly, highly recommend them. Very good quality work. So I know that we have some visiting Rotarians and guests here today, so I'm going to invite you to come up here. So anyone who's visiting us today or is a guest, we'll do the flag exchange at the end. So this point in time is not the flag exchange. We'll do that at the end. But you'll come up. You'll need to speak into the microphone so that our people on Zoom can hear. And just tell us your name and the club that you are with. So please come on up.
Thank you. Good day. I'm very glad to be with you today. I am Spomenka Kovačević. I'm from Serbia, from Niš. Rotary Club, my Rotary Club has 23 members, and it is the oldest club in my town. We have 4 Rotary clubs up today for 250,000 inhabitants. My club is 100% Paul Harris club. We all have Paul Harris badge. So this time I would like to especially to thank thank the Rotary One for took a part in our global grant that we finished 5 years ago. And really, we consider your club as a very friendly club for us. So thanks again.
Thank you. Welcome. Let me stop and share so people on Zoom can see your face. Okay. Now they can see your face.
Hello, this is Shigeo Kano speaking from Japan. And this visit is maybe third time. And every visit is because of my daughter's family visit. She is now living in Chicago, and she is carrying 3 children. And she is my wife. Okay. So my Rotary Club is very little Rotary Club. The number is almost 20, not so large, but a very family club. And when I tell the member, I go to the Chicago club, they ask me. This club is number one club. So every member knows my makeup is always here. So, thank you. Next time I meet you.
Hello everyone, my name is Yoko Kano. So already my husband explained why we are here. So we visited my grandchildren, 2 daughters and 1 son. So before Corona, she has 1 baby, but during Corona too. So for supporting her, I visited twice in Corona. It's a hard time. Yeah, after I went back to Japan, quarantine time, 2 weeks, I have to stay in Tokyo. It's a hard time, but many interesting experience I did. And also, I'm very happy to join us today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this time I carry the banner to you all members, and that banner shows a very beautiful Japanese festival car. Great story. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Hello, good afternoon to all of you. It's really an honor to be here. As I said, I am Africa Leon from Spain, from Marbella, this beautiful city in the south of our country, in the Mediterranean coast, the famous Costa del Sol. It's really, for me, unforgettable to be here. I will always keep this in my memories because I am Rotarian already 20 years. And I had this Rotarian feeling. And to be here in this Rotary Club #1, the one that was founded by Paul Harris, is really a dream that became true. Thank you so much. and I hope to host you there in Spain. Whenever you go, you are very welcome. We are the third oldest club in my country. We are very active. We have a lot of activities. We really contribute to make our city and our world a better place to live. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my name is Thomas Hicks and I come from East Germany. The club is Rotary Club Merseburg, 28 members, and I'm here in holiday. And for me, it's a very historical day. 63 years ago, the Berlin Wall was built, and that's why it's a special day. And I'm here, a free man in the US, and I enjoy it. And thank you, Timo, for invited, and I'm very happy to be here.
To lower this a little bit. Hi, I'm Peggy Stedman, and I am Ted Neville's girlfriend, or sweetie, or I don't know. But you couldn't ask for a better person to introduce someone to a club because he is so enthusiastic about Rotary, and I know he's dedicated about Rotary. And I'm learning so much about the service work and so impressed with dictionaries for school children and the kayak. I wish I would have known about the kayak cleanup. I would have. Yeah, that sounded great. And just all of the projects, making lunches for homeless people and all of the service, the wonderful service throughout Chicagoland area. I think it's terrific. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think it's so amazing that we are part of this club, but we are connected to something like 36,000 other clubs in the world. And that's just amazing, right? It just blows my mind every time. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move us forward to our final announcements here before I end our meeting. So each of you should have received a link to our member survey. This is an opportunity for you to share with us your thoughts about our club. That link did go out to your email. If for some reason you haven't received it, you can speak with Trisha from the office and let her know that. Next week, we don't have a meeting because of the DNC, so I'm pretty much going to duck and cover. I don't know about you guys, but the Democratic National Convention, so we just figured it's a good time for us. If we don't have to be here, let's just not. So the next time we will meet will be August 27th. So this is going to be another one of our fellowship meetings. So we do this once a month. Last month, we had a service project with the Snow City Arts, and this month we're going to do what's called a SWOT analysis. So I'll be tasking you with a little bit of in-class work. So the SWOT analysis is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this is going to be a little bit of a working meeting with fellowship thrown in, but it'll give us an opportunity to kind of air our thoughts about our club and where it's been and where we want it to go. The Rotary Fun Night at the White Sox. I think last time I made a joke and said the Rotarians were going to be the only ones at the game, but the White Sox just won a game, so maybe they're on an uphill battle, like an uphill swing. Yeah. So every year is a fundraiser for End Polio Now. This is a Rotary Day for our whole district. So this is not just for our club. This is for the entire district, 6450. It is August 30th at 7:10 p.m. So you can find the registration link on our calendar, as well as you can go to the district calendar as well if you want to sign up and purchase tickets for that. The first Monday of every month is our Rotary Means Business Fellowship at Cafe Chow. The check-in starts at 5:30. The event goes from 6 until 8. So the next one is slated to be on September 2nd. So there's no cost to attend this. It's a great opportunity for fellowship and for networking. Speaking of fellowship, how many of you have bought your ticket to our club event on September 8th? Why is there only why are there only 2 hands up in the room? This is a wonderful opportunity to support our club at a great place. It's designed in sort of a 1950s hair salon. It's called Beauty Bar. It's on Chicago, just east of Ashland. And music, 80s, 90s, 2000s. There's a little bit of music trivia thrown in. Right now, tickets are $40. The price will go up on August 25th. They'll go up again at the door. So if you want to wait and buy tickets at the door, that's fine because it's going to cost you $60. But if you buy tickets now, that's $40. My goal is to have 100 people there. Do you know how many we have registered right now? 15. So we have a long way to go. So get your friends, your families. It could be like an out-of-work colleague event. So please help us and make this a really successful event. I do want to publicly thank Shada and Timo for sponsoring the event. So Peggy made note of what a great ambassador Ted is. So Ted and Richard pretty much spearhead our Rotary Roundtable every Friday. And Tricia said that with the DNC coming, we have some visiting Rotarians. And so they'll be joining the Rotary Roundtable. This is a Friday event. It's networking, it's fellowship. You don't have to register. You just show up and hang out with other Rotarians. Yes. Oh, okay. Perfect. Perfect. So I'd like to thank you for registering late. Those of you who register past our Friday 11 a.m. deadline, give us an extra $10 with that registration. So thank you very much. If that was you, I know we had a few people. Good job, Eric. We like those happy dollars. So thank you for doing that. So if you register Rotary One before 11, the reason is we have to give our count to the ULC. And so if you register late, anyway, we charge you 10 extra dollars. So this is also the point where I ask you for other monies for our Rotary Foundation, the Rotary One Foundation. So make sure that you are connecting with the office about how to make your donation. You can do it online, you can do it over the phone, you can call the office and they will help you with that. Those of you who are part of corporations or who are part of nonprofits, we do have these new membership opportunities that we are promoting now. So if you want more information on that, just let me know, or you can let the office know and we'll get you that. The information is also on the website. If you have an idea for a speaker, you can contact Eric. So Annette was here today because I read an article in the Tribune about the problem with birds colliding, and I reached out to her. We've never met before today, but as I said in my installation speech, my 2 real big things are the environment and animal welfare. So this is like the 2 combined. So I reached out to her. I've never met her, but I read an article and was like, I'd like her to come. So if you come across anything that you're like, I think this would be a good speaker, let Eric know or talk to me. That's fine as well. And we'll get that person in. So with that, I think we're ready for the 4-way test. So if you'll please stand. This is the Rotary 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And then our number 5, will it be fun? So with that, I adjourn this meeting. I thank you for your company today. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
For the